Everybody, can't you see there's a war going on? Why are we fighting each other? What's the reason? I don't know.
Hello, Malcolm.
Hey, VanDella, how are you doing?
I am absolutely wonderful. I am so excited that we're having another great show today.
It's going to be a great one.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. We've been so excited, just been talking about this for the past couple of weeks, and the day is finally here. So all of you that are in our listening audience, we have a great program lined up for you today. So Malcolm, can you read our quote of the day?
I sure can. Healing takes time, and asking for help is a courageous step. And that is Mariska Hargitay.
Yes, and when I first saw this quote, it took me back to what I'm actually going through right now, physically, as far as my accident since 2017. And healing does take time, and that's something that I've been struggling with. And emotionally, physically, mentally, you have to take time, and our program that we're having today is so appropriate for our quote of the day. And when I was looking at healing takes time and asking for help is courageous, that was directed directly to me. It's almost like you found that quote for me and for everything that we're going to talk about today.
Well, I think the people we're going to have on our show here shortly are a image of what courage is.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So when we're talking about courage, courage can be a lot of things. People have to have courage sometimes to get up in the morning. Sometimes it takes courage to change your profession. Sometimes it takes courage to sit down and talk to someone that's normally something that's very uncomfortable. So when we're talking about courage, it's not just talking about the courage of, sometimes people think courage of a lion, but sometimes it's talking about courage whether it be, emotional, physical. It takes courage to make a change, especially when you're talking about a monumental change.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm excited about today. So next we're going to have our guest. It's going to be Jeff Copeland, Curt Copeland, and Chief Daniel Scesney. Get ready for a great show. You are watching the Malcom and VanDella show. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Who's our sponsor, Malcolm?
Our sponsor is the Camp Media. They are our video and production sponsor. Don't forget to visit the Camp Media at thecampmedia.com.
Yes. So today we have some wonderful guests. We have our Chief, Daniel Scesney. We have our City Council Representative, Mr. Jeff Copeland. And we also have his amazing son, Mr. Curt Copeland. Welcome to our show.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome,
y'all.
Yes. So we won't personally do introductions because we've known Chief Scesney for a very long time, all the great things that you're doing in our community, and we are loving everything that you and the police department are doing. You're really making great changes and being involved and having the officers involved in the community. And of course, Mr. Copeland, we love you on the City Council. And I've had the pleasure of meeting you, Curt, today, and we are looking forward to hearing your story. But before we get started, we will allow everyone to do a brief introduction of themselves. So we'll start with you, Chief.
Okay, short and sweet. My name, as you know, is Daniel Scesney, Chief of Grand Prairie PD, just since January. And boy, has it been an interesting 2020.
Yes, yes. So, Chief, tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. So I grew up in Camarillo, California. When I lost my mom at age 8 and my dad at age 19. So pretty quickly I learned that I needed 3 hots and a cot, and Uncle Sam was standing right there to offer that up with the Marine Corps. So on Easter Sunday in 1994, I was standing on yellow footprints at Marine Corps Recruit Depot, San Diego. For your jarhead audience, they'll know what I mean when I say yellow footprints. I spent 4 years in the Marine Corps as a military policeman, and that really shaped who I am as a person, I think. And the Marine Corps is an outstanding organization, and they taught me about leadership and discipline and a whole host of other things. Also learned a lot about being a policeman in the Marines, except the big difference is everybody in the Marine Corps already had a background check, so that helped out. So anyhow, got out of the Marine Corps, came to the Dallas area. Shortly after that, I applied to be a Grand Prairie police officer. Have been here ever since. So
Wow.
I really view the Grand Prairie PD as my family, and the residents of this city as my extended family. It's really a labor of love, and I'm passionate about it, and I'm honored to be here.
All right,
Well,
thank you.
Grand Prairie is definitely blessed
Yes,
to have
we are.
Chief Scesney
Yes,
at the
we
helm
are.
here. So,
Very kind of you, thank you.
so
with the amazing job that Chief Dye did. I love Daniel personally and a huge fan of him professionally, and I worried about anybody trying to follow Steve Dye. But now we call him Steve Who.
that's right.
Around City Hall, it was so hard. You'd called Steve Dye Chief for so long.
Yes.
But now if you call him Chief, it's disrespectful to Chief.
Well, for the record, I prefer Daniel. So this is, yeah.
And Steve prefers Chief, so maybe that's working out. But Daniel has made it easy to call Steve Dye Steve.
Yes, he really has.
And my favorite councilman here today is Mr. Jeff Copeland, and we're going to allow Jeff to tell us a little bit about yourself, and then if you don't mind, if you can also introduce your son.
I would be honored to. Thank you very much for having me. I grew up in Grand Prairie. I guess I moved here in 6th grade. Jackson Middle School, South Grand Prairie High School, graduated in 1984. Went on to the University of North Texas to play football and received my degree. I married my high school sweetheart. She was a 1983 graduate of South Grand Prairie High School. We're still married today. I guess I should include happily, but we're married today. For the most part, we're doing good. We're doing good after 30 years in COVID. But just been a lifelong resident of our town and honored to serve. I'm place 7, which means at large, which means I get to represent everybody.
Yes.
All of our council members represent all of our citizens,
Yes,
but
yes.
I don't have a specific district, so I get to drift around town, and it's been wonderful. It's just an honor to serve. And with that, I want to introduce my son, which is why we're here.
That's right.
This is my son, Curt Copeland, and a little bit of background on Curt. He's a great speaker. He'll speak for himself, but I asked him if I could make this introduction. Curt was always a great kid growing up. We were best friends. He was always a shiner in 9th grade. While playing football, he also joined the Technology Students Association, and which is, the kids that are really into the techie stuff. And Curt went on to win several national championships doing that. He's an incredible pianist. Is that what it's called? He plays
Yes.
beautiful piano,
That's
both
right.
regular and classic. He's an amazing guitarist. He's turned himself into an amazing vocalist. He is an everybody's guy. He's a wonderful dancer. I mean, we worked on all of these things as he was growing up. He's married. His wife is a physician's assistant. They went to Texas A&M together. Curt is a mechanical engineer from Texas A&M. A wonderful father. He has a 6-year-old son and a 14-month-old daughter. And just checking off all the boxes. And what we're also here to tell you today, and thank y'all for this opportunity and this audience, is that my son suffers from anxiety and depression, and it has had some negative effects on his life. And our goal today is to put our faces on what mental illness actually looks like. We all have, prior to our family experiencing this, we all have some mental image of what mental illness looks like and how it affects families. And I'm here to tell this room and this audience that this is what it looks like. Normal people doing normal things, accomplishing things, raising families, but there can be times that it gets very, very difficult. And so as a sitting councilman, I saw an opportunity. I didn't see an opportunity. I just saw a need, a desire. Is there anything we can do? Is there anything? And I went to my son first, and I said, son, would you be willing to be the face of this and help other families that we all look so normal on Facebook? You know what? We are normal. There's nothing abnormal about our family. And that's what, and Curt said, I would love to be the face of that, Daddy. If I could take away pain from any one person that I've experienced, then I'm willing to do whatever that takes. So.
All right, so Curt, tell us a little bit about yourself, than what your dad has said.
Yeah, so absolutely.
What's your perspective of yourself?
Yeah, so been a Grand Prairie boy my whole life. Born and raised here, went to Arlington schools. Just kind of grew up around here, and being with my dad and his influence around here, got to know quite a bit of people. So feel really at home here in Grand Prairie. And it is my community that I feel very involved with and feel part of the family.
Thank you. Well, we are so glad that you guys are willing to join us. So Malcom, let's get this show started. You are listening to the Malcom and VanDella show, and we are here to talk about a program that has started in the city of Grand Prairie. Chief, can you tell us about the program?
I will, although the councilman name dropped like 2 universities. I don't bring up my horn frog. That's where I got my graduate degree. I will get beat up. So Cope, this is something we're really excited about. It stands for Community Outreach, Partnership, and Education. And let me tell you sort of how that came about. As Councilman Copeland mentioned, he saw a gap, and I hope he doesn't mind me sharing with you that when we talked about it, he envisioned some of these things that are happening in our nation happening to Curt. And he frankly worried him and his lovely wife. And so what his challenge to me is can we do anything different? Can we do something better? Go back to the drawing board. So gave that a lot of thought, prayed on that, but most importantly brought in all the experts. So we've got Courtney Runnels, who's our mental health coordinator, and our entire mental health team, and said, look, what can we do to make this better? So COPE was our answer to that. And let me give you just a snapshot of what it looks like. One of the very most dangerous encounters law enforcement officers have with people that are in mental health crisis. Very often those officers have no idea that the person they're interacting is in mental health crisis. They're not making sometimes sound or safe decisions. And unfortunately, there are times where individuals will put the officers in a deadly force encounter. And so we wanted to find a way to slow that down. What can we do to empower officers with more information so that they could have an advantage on de-escalating the situation? So in Grand Prairie, if you sign up for our COPE program, which by the way, you can do that by going to grandprairiepolice.org/services/COPE, C-O-P-E. You sign up, come on in, you bring your diagnosis information, you meet with our mental health therapist. What she will then do is vet it, make sure that you're not just mad at your neighbor and trying to sign them up, right? It's a genuine person in need. And then they input that diagnosis information into our system so that officers responding on calls where we're going to a specific address of our participant or a name, maybe an officer runs a name, or a license plate. They will have that information flagged, so they'll have a much more robust information about the individual in the program. So for instance, we get a call of a vehicle that's parked in a median. Maybe the caller says the individual is acting unusual. They provide us with the license plate. Our dispatch center will be able to know immediately that that is Mr. Jones, for instance. Mr. Jones suffers from this particular illness, and that his triggers might be flashing light or loud noise, and his emergency contacts are these individuals. We can start putting in play a mechanism to help get people there to defuse the situation before we even get there. So we feel like this is an absolute game changer. Again, it's linked to not just the person's name, but their vehicle and their address. Having that information on the front end will help us avoid this collision course where we're trying to figure out on the fly when there are weapons or dangerous encounters in real time.
That's a heck of a
Yes, it
heck
is.
of a tool to digest,
Yes.
right? So I'm going to ask you another question that's going to allow, hopefully, to elaborate on how big this is.
Sure.
To your knowledge, are there any other programs like this, to your knowledge?
Not like this, no. Not that I'm aware of. There's a lot of great programs out there, but this is really on the cutting edge in my view. I will tell you the program just doesn't stop there, because keep in mind that avoiding or de-escalating a potentially mental health crisis is really only step one. So the next part of it is our mental health team will then get the individual to the care they need. But after that, now we have them in our system, and we do routine follow-ups. So we want them to know who we are. We don't want them to know who Chief Scesney is. We want them to know who Daniel is, or who Greg is, or whoever our team is. We make sure that they have the tools they need to stay healthy. If it's a dollars and cents problem, we put them together with some folks that can help get those hurdles out of the way. Maybe we're just checking to make sure they're taking their medicine. But I can tell you that as a byproduct, in my view, of our mental health programs we've instituted, are emergency apprehensions. In other words, those apprehensions where we have to take individuals to emergency psychiatric care are dropping like a rock. And we hope to continue that trend.
That's
It's
awesome.
incredible. So, Mr. Copeland, can you tell me what triggered you to want to be involved in something like this?
Yes, ma'am. It was dramatic, and we had seen Curt suffer, and what we call in our family is a glaze over, to where all of a sudden we know that that's not it's our son, but he would literally glaze over, and I couldn't get him out of it, and we know that was an episode that was happening, and we don't want to make it political by any stretch of the imagination, but I was watching a story. I don't even know what part of the country it was in, but a person that was obviously had mental health issues. The police had zero idea. There's no way they could have known. When an officer just pulled up on the scene, the guy lunged at him with a 2-inch knife, and the officer had no resort but to use deadly force. And as I'm watching that story, I back the blue, and I don't want to get political, but when an officer is being lunged at with a knife, I believe that officer has a duty to perform, and you take that for whatever you want. But I'm sitting there and I'm absorbing it as a father as well, and I bring my wife into the living room and say, "Here's what's going on," and I said, "What do you think that officer should have done?" And my officer said, "He had no choice. He had to shoot that gentleman." And I said, "What if it was Curt?" And my wife's bravery, she said, "They would have to shoot him too." And that's when I said, "We got to do something," because I agree. They would have to have shot my son as well. And so that's when I said, we got to figure out, is there anything else we can do? And I'm going to tell you, the Grand Prairie Police Department, when I approached them with, can we do something, it was so imperative to me because Chief Scesney was there, former Chief Dye was there, that I said, guys, I'm not criticizing. I'm not saying we could have done anything different on any of our calls, but is there anything different we can do? And they were so open, and they were so, man, we get it, Jeff. We know that you back the blue. We don't take this defensively at all. And I'm telling you, I'm looking in the camera, and I'm telling you, Grand Prairie, that your police department embraced this idea and said, is there something we can do? Because mine and Curt's original name of the program was not Cope. The original name was just One. Because in Curt's darkest hours, he would cry out, say he could just save one person. And if there's anything that we're doing with this Cope program now, when we change the name to it, and that's a better name, but is not only save somebody in a mental health crisis, but to also save one of our officers. Because you'll never convince me that any officer wakes up hoping to take the life of a mentally ill person today. I will never, ever believe that. And so when we talk about just one, we're talking about the mental anguish on our officers and their families, the mental anguish on the person. So that's when I said, I am on a city council. I'm in a position to do something. I have a relationship with the police department. I have no idea what to do other than to go to my son and say, what can we do? And he and I sat in the garage and we started talking. We put together a game plan and we took it up to the police station, and they have run with it from there.
Wow, thank you very much. So, Chief Scesney, with the COPE program, how many officers are involved with the program?
All of them.
Wow.
So every officer has access to that data. It comes through our dispatch center. So, and quite honestly, it's not just officers. Anytime we're running our code officers, if there's an interaction where we know we're going to a location or license plate or an individual, that information is at their disposal. It's important to point out the program is 100% voluntary. So our participants need to understand we safeguard that information very closely, but we don't get access to people's private medical diagnosis without, in fact, they have to provide it to us.
Okay.
Another thing I'd like to underscore and point out, because Councilman Copeland and his son Curt are so humble, I changed the name, and my team changed the name, because I think it's important to honor Curt and his courage. Let's remember, it takes a lot of guts to come forward and talk about your own challenges, but then to do that so that others can be healthier or, quite frankly, save lives, that's honorable. Right? That is frankly honorable. So to call this program COPE in honor of Curt Copeland, in my opinion, is the right thing to do. Also, I'd also like to underscore one other thing that the councilman said. He is absolutely correct when he says this just isn't about our community. It's about all of our community, which includes those of us that wear blue, who are one with our community. The last thing any officer wants to do is take the life of a human being, or any life, frankly. So any tool we can use to avoid that, we are all in. And by the way, as we go along, if we find ways to tweak the program, believe me when I tell you, we're going to tweak it. We're going to continue to change and get better every day. That is our commitment to our citizens, and it is our duty to do so. And I feel like this is a great first step. But as Councilman Copeland said, if we can just save at least one, it's all worth it.
Yes.
Absolutely. And Curt, can you tell us what motivated you to be willing to come out and share your story?
Yeah, so been continually recovering and working on my mental health, and it's been a challenge for me for quite a while, but in times where feeling good and things are going well, you really get that feel. I got that feel and that need to use the lessons I've learned and the challenges I've faced to reach out and help someone or help others in general. And a lot of that comes from the desire inside that all of this has been worth something. All of the challenges I've faced, if the difficulties of getting through dark times and hard times, if that can reach out and help one person, help anybody around me, then it's worth it. It makes my challenges worth that to help others around me.
So that's a very interesting. Obviously, our quote of the day kind of led into this, the courage that it took to come forward.
Yes.
Absolutely. Tell us, what do you hope to see? Where do you see this going? What are your feelings on where you think this could go in the future?
Yeah, I would. I mean, obviously romanticize, and I'd love for it to just sweep the nation and take control of the world. And everybody has this value of mental health and places value on it in others. But for the short side, I would really love to see the reducing the stigma of mental health and in our community in particular. I think we're already taking great steps to do that and to humanize that relationship between police officers and the community members. We are all part of one community, and we are all humans. And I know for me personally, in times when you are distraught and feeling negative and down, you do want help. You may not realize it at that time, but somewhere in there's something calling for you to reach out for help. And a lot of times we don't know what that would look like. And this is an opportunity for the police department and the Grand Prairie elected officials to say, this is where you can call. If you have nothing else, you can reach out to here. And there is someone that cares for you and is looking out for you that can come and assist you and give you the information you might need.
My question to you, Curt, how old were you this is actually for the both of you, how old were you when you realized that you had mental health issues?
In hindsight, looking back on it, you can see signs that have been there, and no fault on anybody in the family, no fault on myself. It's just not knowing. And if you didn't know the signs to see, then how are you expected to take any action? So I'd seen, looking back, I'd seen signs of issues early on, but in the mindset of the time, you power through and you push through.
Yes.
And so a lot of it came to a head in college, when I was in college at Texas A&M, where a lot of the stresses just compounded. I was on my own, I was removed from my family and a lot of my support group, and didn't know how to handle a lot of the stresses that I was experiencing. And I think that's a very common thing for a lot of people. Once you remove yourself, whether intentionally or unintentionally, from your support group, and you feel the pressures of life, which is destined to happen, you don't know what to do. You don't know where to reach out. And that was the first time that I realized I needed to get some help and look into help. And then it's been a journey ever since.
And it's my understanding that you're going to have an opportunity to go talk to police officers. Can you tell us a little bit about that? I'm not sure if it's the right question for you or Chief or Jeff, but I understand that's going to happen.
COVID has restricted. It's probably best for Daniel, but well, you go ahead.
Sure. So we have a number of opportunities where we are going to leverage our relationship with Curt as much as we can. But I will tell you that every single one of our police officers that come to our police academy is going to meet Curt, number one. And this is a good opportunity to touch on another point. The state mandates 40 hours of CIT training, crisis intervention training, to all police officers. In Grand Prairie, we just feel like that's not far enough. Our officers get around 100 to 106 hours, 2.5 times the state requirement. But also, we integrate that training and the lessons that we are learning into all of our training. So if it's traffic stops, we're going to touch on it. If it's family disturbance training, we're going to touch on it, because you can't just go to a mental health call, right? Sometimes it overlaps in so many different ways. So we have officers that go through routine training through our 40-hour. Curt's going to have that opportunity. Our police academy, he's going to get tired of seeing our faces.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
I mean, that's how
is.
open-armed that our community took this,
Yes.
and so as we try, Curt, I loved your answer about hindsight, because I was trying to think, VanDella, when this occurred, and all we can do is go hindsight. And an issue that sticks out to me, I think it was like your junior year in high school. He was over at his girlfriend's house, who is his wife right now, and her parents went to junior high with my wife and I mean, to say we are a close family, And it was his junior year in high school, and I think he had just got some new Nikes or something. I'm the type of dad that gets some Walmart shoes, you know, and he's like, Dad, can I please finally get some Nikes? Okay. And he was over at the Holmes' house, and it snowed, a rare occurrence in DFW, and of course they all went outside to run and play in the snow. And right before Curt stepped, and this is years of therapy later and figuring stuff out, right before he stepped off into the grass, he goes, oh, these are my new shoes that my dad bought me. And he honors his dad, and he knows I didn't go out buying Nikes or whatever it was all the time. And so now at 17 years old, he couldn't go run and play in the snow because of the restrictions he put on himself. And so that is a warning to parents and aunts and uncles and to anybody listening to this. There are signs that we can only go back in hindsight and see. I will tell you that I was adamant as a parent that I would not live my life through my children. And you see it a lot in youth sports. And I was his coach in Little League football, and every day on the way to practice, what would I say?
You want to quit?
You want to quit. I wanted to make sure he wasn't playing for me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I was adamant about that. I was adamant about not being that parent. But I also knew some of the things that as an adult I wish I'd have had learned as a youth. So one of those was piano, and Curt was in piano lessons at 5 or 6 years old, and he said, "Daddy, why?" And I said, "One of these days you're going to go to college, and after the football game, go to some fancy sorority house, and they're going to have a piano out there, and you're going to enjoy knowing how to play." And it worked out, right? And so from that, you know, the guitar's a natural stream from that, and I bought him a guitar. And then as a family, me and his mother and sister and I, we would go over to Billy Bob's every Sunday night for dance lessons. And so now when we go down to Green Hall in Texas and some of these other places, Curt and his wife are the greatest dancers on the floor. All of these things, these were all tools. These are all weapons I wanted to give my son for life, okay? And I did it consciously. And so now he gets down to college and we start experiencing some of these things. And all of these things that I think we would say, well, that's a well-rounded guy. Plays piano, plays football, plays guitar, life of the party, dancer. All of these well-rounded things, right? What Curt's mental illness did to him when he got away from his support system is all of those things became masked. Okay, and if it's one word I hope this audience remembers today, it's mask. And that his brain started telling him, well, you're not a football player. You only put that mask on when you're around the football players. You're not a technology student. You put that mask on. You're not a dancer. You put that mask on. And his brain started convincing him that those were all masks. Of what I say is a well-rounded young man, his brain convinced him those were masks and that he was constantly wearing masks, and the only time he could be safe was to take all the mask off, lay in his bedroom in the dark, and isolate himself. Well, that's not good for a GPA at Texas A&M, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But isn't that a horrible disease?
It is.
But this nice young man was beating himself up over that.
And bouncing off of that, from my perspective, you do feel well-rounded. You feel like you're doing these things. You are acting like a normal person and doing things that should be bringing you joy. And then you do have that hang up at the edge of the curb where there's snow and you got your new shoes on, and you think something's wrong, something is going wrong, and I should be able to power through this, and I can't. And I don't know what to do, and I don't know where to go or who to outreach to. And a lot of people, I've been blessed with a great circle of people around me, a support system. And even then, I have struggles, still to this day. So I can only imagine people in the community that have very little, if any, support structure around them. And I want them to know that this is the start of a support structure within our community of people saying, you have people around you that are here looking out for you and want to help you and the best for you.
Tell them about some of the fortune telling you were doing down at A&M.
Yeah, so thought spiraling was a big thing for me. If you're getting these negative thoughts going over and over and over, and you can't get yourself out of it, and it just keeps going down and down and down, and it doesn't feel like there is any hope or outreach, and you don't feel like you're worthy to even ask for help a lot of the time. So I think another great part of this system, too, that I can attest to from being in that position is a loved one or a caretaker can reach out for you, and someone that might be in a situation that can see that and say, hey, this person needs help, and they can come and assist you in that motion in that time. So
It's, you know, we live in a world that doesn't want to label people anymore, but when we're talking about mental health and mental illness, some labels are very appropriate, because what Curt was able to learn through counseling, because there was a name, it kind of explained the activity. But as a parent, I would say, son, go talk to your professor. That seems pretty normal, right? Especially if you're mechanical engineering at A&M, there's a lot of interaction. It's not just go to class. It's not like a marketing degree from North Texas, what I did, you know what I'm saying? And Curt would say, yes, and then his brain would start saying, well, you're going to get there, and he's going to ask you about something that you're not comfortable about, and then you're not going to know the answer, and then you're going to start sweating, and then all of these things that don't hurt him, but that's what his brain would build up. So the only safe thing to do is just don't go talk to that professor. And I'm sharing that with you as this is now a parent trying to help other parents or trying to help other people. Some little warning signs. We had no idea. I was just mad that he wouldn't go talk to his professor. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so, as loving as a father as I wanted to be and tried to be, I'm sure I was mad that he wouldn't go see his professor. And now I see the impact of that. That we want to say, you know, it's not anybody's direct fault, and I'm not saying that, but could I have handled it better? If I had known what was going on, could I have handled it better? And that takes us right back to the COPE program, because now that we know what's going on, could we handle it better? If Curt's triggers, and I don't know what they are, I mean, maybe, but it's not, but if his triggers were black shirts and flashing lights, and he was having a glazed over incident where his wife had to call the Grand Prairie police, and they showed up with code 3 and everybody wearing solid black, well, guess what, that ain't going to do much for him.
Yes.
But what Curt told us that day at City Hall when we launched this idea was he said, just show up and tell me you're there to help. And so maybe instead of our officers going, exit the house over a loud radio, they know exactly who's going on, and they're going to walk up and that officer's going to say, hey, Curt, it's David. I know I'm in a Grand Prairie police uniform today, but remember me, it's David, and I'm here to help.
Perfect, yep.
That makes a difference. You are listening to the Malcom and VanDella show. We have our Chief Daniel Scesney, Curt Copeland, and our Honorable Jeff Copeland, our City Councilman, and of course Malcolm.
You got to come along for the ride.
I just got to come on for the ride.
Exactly. Who's our sponsor, Malcolm?
The Camp Media. The Camp Media does our video production. We're very blessed to have them
Yes,
here
we
helping us along the way. Thank you guys. I just want to also talk about mental health. I was shocked. We had a mental health expo a few years ago,
Yes.
and some of y'all were able to make it. And we talked about, we had state reps in and things like that. And I did not know this, but the largest provider for mental health in the state of Texas is the Harris County Jail.
Yes.
From what during that time at least.
It was.
And I think that if we're able to put a program into play that's a tool in the toolbox that Curt and his family has so graciously come forward with, that is so commendable of our department to have open ears and open mind to make that happen. I mean,
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, guess, is there anything that you think that we didn't touch on that we'd like to share with our audience today?
For me, I'll jump out first, and I'll let these two guys finish up, is parents be looking, and it's so hard to see, but do not turn a blind eye. You wouldn't turn a blind eye on your child's broken heart. So when you see some of these things, the reason I'm here today is so that these parents will know they're not abnormal. They're not different. We're all experiencing this, and it's prevalent in our society for a multitude of reasons. But do not sweep this under the rug. Take care of your children. Take care of yourself. And if it's a parent, if your child is totally mentally healthy and you're the one struggling, then get down there and fill out that form. We need to come help you also. So anybody that's listening, and I promise you, from this point forward, I've been kind of waiting on this official announcement, and I know that Chief Scesney's been out in the community. As a councilman, I'm out in the community. My closing remarks will forever be, go fill out that COPE form. If you have somebody in your family or you know somebody that needs it, go get it done. I saw a mother after her son died screaming out in agony, why didn't you know? Why didn't you know? Why'd you kill him? And that just haunted me. And I said, you know, this wasn't in Grand Prairie. But I said, how could they know? Well, now we have a chance. But you know what?
Yes.
Only if they go fill out that form.
Yes.
And it's voluntary. Voluntary.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. Please fill out the form. It's a great opportunity to be involved in this sort of program. And I've already filled it out myself, and I like to think of it as healthy Curt fills out that form to take care of unhealthy Curt.
Amen.
When I'm in a
Amen,
position, I might not be able to get up there and fill out that form and talk to people. Do be proactive, take that step forward so that your community, your team around you can be proactive for you in your place.
Amen.
Chief, can you tell us again how to get access to the form?
Yes, sure can. GrandPrairiePolice.org/services/COPE. Again, GrandPrairiePolice.org/services/COPE. is how you get access to the program. I would like to close by two things. One, I admire and honor your courage and putting a face to a very difficult situation. That takes guts. And I also want to tell you and our entire community that we stand shoulder to shoulder with you. And anything we can do, we are here to help. In Grand Prairie, you can pick up the phone, you dial 911, and you're going to get a cop in most cases in less than 6 minutes. If you're in crisis, we want to help. We don't want to hurt anyone. So please fill out the form. I'm asking everyone, please fill out the form. If you're struggling, it will help us help you and make our community a better place to live, and also help our officers get you the help you need.
Thank you very much. You are listening to the Malcom and VanDella show. And in closing, if you need help, fill out the COPE form. There's someone there to help you.
And we're going to put a link in the comments. We're going to ask you to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well as like us on Facebook.
All right. Have a great day.